Welcome, everyone. We're just going to wait a few more seconds to let people trickle in, and then we'll get started. Okay, well, thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. I'm Jordan Bowen with Point Reyes Books. I'm here with author Stephen Jenkinson and Ned Buskirk. We're here for a conversation about Stephen's incredible new book, Trembling Still, The Awful Clarity of a Mind in Eclipse. I want to first let you know that we're recording tonight. This recording will be posted as soon as we're able to on YouTube. We're also live streaming on YouTube. And we're also going to be taking questions. So if you want to put those questions, there's a Q&A feature in Zoom if you're Zoom savvy. So it may be under more, or it may be a button at the bottom of your screen. And you can submit a question that way, or I'll be monitoring the chat and feeding those questions to Ned as well. So again, thank you so much for joining us this evening. And I'll just do a quick introductions and let Stephen and Ned take it away. Stephen Jenkinson is a culture activist, worker, and author. He is the creator of the Orphan Wisdom School, co-founded with his wife, Natalie Roy, in 2010. He apprenticed with a master's storyteller as a young man and received a master's degree in theology at Harvard University and a master's of social work from the University of Toronto. Stephen has worked extensively with dying people and their families, formerly serving as the director of palliative care at Mount Sinai Hospital of Toronto. His books include Come of Age, Matrimony, Die Wise, and of course, Trembling Still. And Stephen's going to be talking with Ned Buskirk, co-founder and executive director for YG2D, aka You're Going to Die, a 501c3 nonprofit bringing diverse communities creatively into the conversation of death and dying, inspiring life by unabashedly sourcing our shared mortality. And I'll just let you know that I'm also going to be sharing some links in the chat if you want more information about anything I just said. And Ned, Stephen, I'll let you take it away. Thank you.
Thanks, Jordan. I just want to take a minute to settle down, just living through a day and a life to get here with Stephen. Always feeling very eager and kind of electric when I get to be with you, Stephen. But I want to take a moment to give everybody that arrives a chance to feel like they're circling up in community. Stephen's not unfamiliar with a host or interviewer bursting into tears. So I just want you to know everything is okay, or is it? But I want you to know I'm okay. But I'm feeling as these tears well up, the usual gratitude to be with community and someone I care about very deeply, who I feel I've had some years to arrive at a time where I could call them a friend. Much of our time together has been maybe some version of this, though. So there's the familiarity of that that matters to me in the specialist of ways. I've got a little candle lit and I've got some incense burning, and I want to give all of you who are circling up a chance to breathe and catch your breath and find the moment to let this Zoom experience fall away and really feel yourself circle up around the fire like Stephen so often helps me feel. And so if you with us, wherever you are, need an inhale and an exhale to settle down, I want to give you that chance. And if you have a candle to light or some incense to burn, do that and wrap yourself in a blanket if it's not too hot where you are, or pour yourself some tea or an iced drink, whatever it is that helps you feel you've arrived. Stephen, just so much gratitude to get this time with you, kind of loving Point Reyes as the intersection in ways that feel similar, your relationship to this part of the world and mine too. It was back in 2003, I guess, that I took my mother's ashes to the Point Reyes lighthouse, and probably illegally, but I did it anyway. Let her ashes fly over the ocean there. And so being able to meet you with Point Reyes books as a connection there in that part of the world matters. And it's why I know you. That loss is how we met. And I want to thank you for all the ways you've helped me, whether you knew it or not, before I met you. And some of you all out there may have had the similar entry point that I had, which is Grief Walker, watching that documentary and feeling in my body an electric yes to more please. And so I've been chasing after Stephen for years since, trying to get him to talk to me and answer the questions I ask that are usually wrong. And he helps write them. And so we're going to be doing some of that today too. So, Stephen, like I usually ask you, and maybe in ways with this book and what it connects to in your life, I'm wondering if you can answer the first question I always pose, which is, how are you? How are you now? I wonder if people sometimes join a call like this because that's more of what they want than ever, is just to check in and be with someone they care about in the wake of the news you shared a couple of years ago.
Right. Well, I have to play catch up myself, Ned, sometimes. It's the weather's variable in matters like this, from morning to afternoon, and from one vision to the next. So, when I remember to, I'm mostly pretty fond of being around, and deeply fond of the extraordinary summons that the last couple of years has been. And chagrined, I have to tell you, chagrined and sometimes deeply disappointed how easy it is to lose the kind of psychic premium that comes to you when you're kind of seized by the scruff and sat down in your chair. And so both those things are ongoing, and good days, bad days is the order of the day typically. And I wonder, to be very frank with you, I wonder whether I'll figure it out first, that it's kind of slipping, that it's kind of infirm, or whatever the adjective is going to be of the moment, or am I going to be so keen on persisting that I'm one of the last people to get the news, kind of thing. I don't know. I hope, obviously, with my sense of whatever style I have available to me, I do hope that I figure it out early on and give everybody a break of having to send me a kind of a notice of wreckage, that sure. Just in case you hadn't seen that sort of stuff. But but until then, I get to do this with you, and life answers the bell when I do.
Yeah, feeling that. Thank you, Stephen. And I wonder about that position you've made in life at the front of the line for people with answers, or at least having a lot of people think you have all the answers, to be hoping you'll have the news first before everybody else. And I feel like this book has more questions statistically than any of the books that you've written in the past. Now, I want to argue on your behalf that I feel like the questions are sometimes the answers, but I'm wondering if you agree, this way that this book has you suddenly placed in a position. And I especially connect Die Wise to this, but I wonder about your book on elderhood, and then I think of Natalie, your partner, and your wife, and I think about, matrimony. There's all these books that suddenly it's like, is this book now the part two to all of those? And it has a lot of questions. I'm wondering if you agree with that, if you have the same sense that it's full of more questions than usual.
Sure. It's full of more transubstantiation than usual, actually. And that seems to have produced a kind of running concussion. I was going to say that's probably too severe. A kind of running gag of blessed uncertainty. Here's the thing. When I'd never sat down to write a book called Trembling Still or any other book from this period. When it happened, I don't think that's disingenuous to say it that way. When it happened, it was partly force of habit, and it was partly I literally didn't know what else to do. I was in such grim disrepair that I certainly wasn't in the position to talk to people or to process anything or to occupy any position of clarity on this whole thing. I was breaking in bits, as they say in England. I was certainly in bits, and when the time came to send the book, which thank God Kimberly Johnson transcribed it for me and kind of made sense of it, because their handwriting was atrocious. When it went away, that was the first time I read it in its entirety, and I had no anticipation that anybody would care or get it. I was glad to have done it. Things were already a little bit different, kind of a year and a half in from what they were at the beginning. But the obligation to see it through the eyes of a publisher and an editor was a seduction, with no disrespect to them. I mean, this is all me I'm talking about. I was deeply seduced by the following prospect. Shall I retroactively introduce a degree of certainty, clarity, forthrightness, structure, design, and like big branches kind of sensibility about the whole matter? Shall I just write that in after the fact? Because God knows it was not there at the time. And it was compelling because some of these things were impenetrable, frankly. They were a kind of literary equivalent of a kind of dark star or a black hole or some kind of mysterium tremendum that didn't let me in either. Frankly, I was kind of on the receiving end of it. It rolled through, it kind of defaced the page, and then I was done. I was dismissed, if you will. That's kind of how it was. And I resisted the temptation, I think, pretty successfittle, which means that it's work. And I guess that won't be new for anybody who's read anything I've written in the past. It'll be differently recognizable, though, I think.
Yeah. Different kind of work. Yeah.
I think what people will see in this thing is a transaction of hurt. That's kind of what it was, and remains a transaction of hurt. And do I think that's of use to anybody? Between you and me, I do. Victory stories and the like, heroes' journeys and the like, they have their use. I haven't lent myself to the creation of any such thing, and I'm not demeaning them now, but I'm saying there was absolutely no room at the inn or in the ark for somebody who was bossy and sure of himself. Not during the time I wrote it, not in the time I prepared it for availability, onto the present moment when today is the official discharge of the
Mhm.
proposition. Yeah.
It's hard for me to imagine there wasn't somehow an intention for including people through at least this book. I imagine when you started writing and needed to write like you were, that was something different. But I'm thinking back to, and you include this in a book, and I love that you do essentially just the transcript of your reveal call when you brought on some hundreds of people to include them in pretty fresh news. I mean, at that point, I mean, had it been, I don't know, how long had it been when you kind of let that many
Maybe a
people
month.
in? Yeah.
Maybe a month. Yeah.
And to know it doesn't feel out of the ordinary for, at least in the ways you've been my teacher, to know things like this are full of potential when we're doing them with others. So what was it that let you decide that the book could be an offering or something worthwhile if you weren't going to succumb to the seduction? What was it you did succumb to?
Hmm. Well, I was persuaded at the level of literary quality, if this is not shameful to admit. I was persuaded there. I was quietly thrilled
Mm.
that it had a kind of
Mm.
literary alacrity and aplomb that I didn't think was in it, because I like perhaps like anybody would, I didn't equate or imagine that in the same vessel there could be savage undoing and some capacity to make that deeply accessible or available to people who cared to read about it. That doesn't seem to necessarily go together so readily. And maybe it's not that common an event, but in this particular case, my chops didn't fail me, and I was, I said somewheres in the back third of, I think, if I said, if it's not bad form, I will admit now that I love my mind. Yeah, that's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
I fell in love with my mind.
Mm.
Yeah.
Not that there isn't an impact with a diagnosis like this on your mind, but it feels particularly powerful to have that be a realization in the wake of a diagnosis like this.
Yeah. 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 I mean, there's so many things, Ned, we could go at,
Yeah.
and we won't get anywhere close. But here's one. So if they tell you that you got a problem in your liver or your kidneys or your knees or your nose, you get the point. When they tell you that, sure, it has an impact. And this is not to compare misery at all. But I think people will come to the point pretty readily in a moment here. And I think what you can do when you're contending with the diagnostic static and invasion that comes on, I think you can create some manageable working distance between yourself and whatever's ailing your kidneys. In other words, it's very unlikely that you would say I over and over again. You'd more likely to say my kidneys over and over again. But man, when they tell you it's your brain,
Mm-hmm.
you see, there's just, Ned, there's nowhere to go.
Mm-hmm.
There's no back room to retreat to, you see.
Mm-hmm.
There's no exit. There's no backstage. So you have to try to figure out, deeply unsuccessfully, but you have to try to figure out where to locate yourself. See, where is this? Maybe self is not the right word. Where are you, given the complexities and the extremities that are besetting your brain? Where are you? Is it one for one? Is every diagnostic piece of mayhem arriving in your brain at the same time that's arriving in you psychically or spiritually or what have you, you see. And this was an amazing dance. That's an ironic term. It just came to me, given the story we may get to later. It's in the book there. But I had to figure out whether or not there's any part of me that could reflect upon the rest of me faithfully, reliably, and authentically. Or was I just in a collapsing house and I was the house? You see?
Mm-hmm.
And I think I figured out a way that I could watch to a certain degree the house burning down. It was mostly a house of psychic habit that was burning down. And somewhere in there, it occurred to me, man, do I ever have a responsibility right now to release on compassionate grounds the person I had grown accustomed to being? Yeah.
Mm. I do want to make time for the body, and it seems like you're inviting it when you reference the stories, because there's a couple stories about dance in the book, but I'll just quote you as a little bit of a way there. You say on April 10th, 2024, all the chapters marked by dates or entries, I guess. The deal you strike with life, that's your body.
Hmm.
I wonder if you can expound on that right now, to give that sentence that stands alone in your writing. It's not a part of a paragraph. It's the beginning of a section, but I'm wondering if it's worth digging into those words a little bit. And I do invite you to maybe use some of those stories. And I think especially with Natalie, I always want to include her, every time we talk. There's an experience I have as her being the next circle out. And I know you have plenty of community and family and friends and ancestors that circle around you, but it matters to name Natalie and to know, like when I meet a cancer patient in a hospital room, the partner by the bedside is the next in line. And the ways you tell stories around her knowing of you and your body and how your body works, how you both have known your body works, and now to see it not hold rice on the chopsticks, or what it means for you to stand and dance now in comparison to years before this diagnosis. So that's my long invitation to the body. But again, to go back to that powerful quote, the deal you strike with life, that's your body.
Yeah. Thank you for pointing out that line. Sorry, I should say, first of all, thank you for mentioning Natalie. And she's all through the book,
Good,
and
correct.
she may read it and she may flinch. She may not be. It's not easy to live with somebody who writes stuff down, because you're probably careful to a certain degree, wondering what's going to appear, But anyway, I think she comes off rather well in the book, I think. So what was going on there with the deal you strike with life, that's your body? I guess it's significant to mention one piece of autobiography, and I'm going to do that with a prequel first. It is said, John Berger is the author, as I know it, of this quote, that autobiography begins with the feeling that you are alone. I've rarely, I don't think ever, gone to autobiography as a kind of through line to anything I've written. I show up from time to time, but no more than a lot of other people do.
Yeah.
This one is entirely different. And this one I had to risk my deep ambivalence about making it too much that, At the same time, though, given what it's about, and given what happens in it, and given where it brings us to, this piece of autobiography seems important to mention. So I'm 3.5 years old. I'm unexpectedly in the hospital. I can't remember what I was told about it. And within 2 days, I'm dying. And it's very clear, and there's quite an elaborate story that goes along with it. But it turns out I have spinal meningitis, which in 1957 or 8 is much more fatal for young children than survivable. And people around you, when you're a very young person and you're dying, people around you detonate the death. They really do. And and it washes through them so severely that you're kind of on the receiving end more of their experience of your death than any possible direct experience you'd have. I go further and say their enduring sorrow is the way by which you come to your death as a child. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I did. And I came out of the experience. They were whispering about possible brain damage, things like this. It became a family joke for years afterwards, and I did anything goofy. That was the sign that was finally coming around, And ironically, almost nobody's around now who was around then. But if there were, I wonder what they'd say about this.
Sure.
I wonder,
Yeah.
But it established an enduring life habit for me of a kind of very persuasive sense that this body was had taken a lot of poison, a lot of hit, that it was kind of almost congenitally available to mayhem. And so I felt probably somewhat frail ongoingly, And when this came on, all those things rolled to the surface and rolled over me. And then I remembered what a psychiatrist said to me years and years ago when this subject came up. He was a Freudian, so he didn't say much, He sat there, looked at me from a long way off, as Freudians can do. And he said, apropos of, feeling congenitally frail, he said, interesting mythology. He said, so he kind of bitch slapped me in that moment.
Yeah.
Clearly, and he meant it. And it was a remarkable, almost surgical incision he made with that observation. And I think he appreciated my sort of willingness and capacity to deeply experience his suggestions. That was a very powerful one. Interesting mythology, he said. And I was back in it, needless to say, for much of the year that this book tracks. And I came to it mostly wounded for the sake of my physical frame, wounded for that, mournful for that. And I think there's a line in the book that says something like this. They say that if I had known I was going to last this long, I would have taken better care of myself. I say, if I had known I was going to last this long, I would have taken better care of that 4-year-old.
I think about that story and your telling of it in Die Wise, and sort of only dawned on me now that you could go and meet the children that you've met who are dying sometimes, and the families that surround them, from the perspective of what you learned through all that, maybe including the the bitch slap from from your professor, to quote you. And I can't help, and we've talked about this already, but to have this moment now where you ask yourself in here, and I'm only looking over here because I have some notes in your book here for reference. But you say this quote on page 129 of your new book: "The grief walker, the die wise guy, will know what to do." And it's a question. It's not, you're not on the side of answering, you're on the question side again. But I do wonder, what is looking on right now at yourself, maybe even in the wake of these writings, because I feel like you have named shifts or deepened understandings or realizations or maybe even like stabilizations. I'm not sure, that might be the wrong word, not fair to ask, but still, is there a way you might be connecting more to the Stephen Jenkinson many of us met for the first time through Die Wise, and feeling understanding from all those decades of work and those words and that wisdom?
Well, I remember as soon as people found out that there was such a book, I started to get nudged in a certain direction, particularly in interviews that didn't really ostensibly have much to do with this. And the nudge was something like this: well, I mean, DIY should come in handy now. Or surely all of these skills are transferable skills to your own.
Wait, hold on. Have people said this to you like in conversation, or you feel it as like a thing people are?
A little of both.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little of both. God bless everybody involved, I should say.
Yeah.
You know, because it's just not an easy conversation, right? Obviously. But although I think we're doing pretty well here.
Yes.
But I mean, the key ingredient to me in anything being available redemptively or remedially from anything I've done in this book is for me to have abandoned the project of riding herd over it as the Die Wise guy may have done. This is not me throwing the Die Wise guy under the bus at all. Okay, that guy, it's only 10 years ago we're talking about, but that guy has no obligation to be somehow magically blessed and endowed with chops, you know, given all of this. If anything, maybe I had an obligation and have an obligation to ruin. You see, I remember distinctly walking from an event that I didn't think I'd be able to get through, and somehow I did. And I said to Natalie as we were walking away from the venue, I feel ruined, you know, not spoiled, not defamed or defaced in some way. I meant by ruined, I mean almost architecturally disassembled, and there's not going to be a restoration, right? I felt I had an obligation, such as it was to people who care to follow anything I've been on about. That too, that's all. That too. See? Do I think it's a public service? Of course I do. Obviously, I do. Do I think that I'd be, quote, thanked for it? That's just not really part of the calculation. I mean, if there's a through line, it might be utility. That's all. Nothing more grandiose than utility. I'm hoping that if there's enough legible sorrow, then human beings being what we are, there'll be some kind of translatability in that sorrow. That we don't have to be talking about neurodegeneration for it to be translatable. We don't have to be talking about any kind of diagnosis necessarily, you know. And I mean, let us not forget that for every one person that's diagnosed, there's families and reams of people who are convulsed by the thing they never saw coming and never credited the possibility of. And of course, I'm one of those, you know. So I don't find that the Die Wise days are particularly legible to me now. You know, I don't find them particularly gone. I find that I have an obligation to respect them by not asking them to abandon their post where and how they emerged in people's lives and my own.
Mm-hmm.
and suddenly, gather around and be like party friends to me now.
Mm-hmm.
Not at all.
Mm-hmm.
This is like I'm in a different place in life entirely, Ned, now.
Mm-hmm.
As people who've been there would readily recognize, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not coming back. I mean, there's, in case nobody knows, there's no cure. There's no treatment. Some people will scoff at there's no treatment. There's no treatment that is in any way persuasive to anybody who's seriously inquiring. I've had remarkable series and reams of suggestions, many of which are psychedelic in nature,
Yeah.
and otherwise.
Well, you've done some. I mean, you're right about some things you have you have done. Yeah.
Yes, that was something. Yes,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but it's certainly not a book where I'm telling people, listen,
Mm.
have I ever got this part of things figured out? And boy, have you been waiting for this. Not at all. I mean, the book begins, if I remember right, before the first entry, when I'm thinking about things for the first time. It says something like, it's a rumination on the notion that if you want the gods to laugh, tell them your plans for yourself. And it ends without sardonicness or irony of any kind, but it ends with the gods. And that was no intention. I just noticed that only in the last few weeks.
Yeah.
That structurally, it begins and ends with the deities.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that seems fitting.
Mm-hmm. Maybe we'll get back to that before we're done.
Sure.
I think I might have caught in your wording something like, and forgive me if I misheard you, but you said, "Am I thankful? Am I, quote, thankful?" I think you might have said something about that. And gratitude has been on my mind, and it is one of my notes because I feel like on page 149, you say you have a new or proven or evolved understanding of gratitude, maybe, and I'm using some of my own words there for that part of your book. The question is simple and it connects to something someone has asked in our Q&A messages from Sage. What has been, I'm gonna go with part of the question and maybe save the second half for after this. But if you could focus on the second half of this, what has been the greatest loss and what has been the greatest gain? And I wonder about gain connected to gratitude, if you can speak to that. And I love this question Sage poses because it doesn't say what has been your greatest loss and what has been your greatest gain. So in true Stephen Jenkinson fashion, I'm being very specific about the language here to give you your options for reply. Her question is, what has been the greatest loss and what has been the greatest gain?
Well, in classic Jenkinson fashion, I have to say that I don't think the way I've been dealt and dealt with through this thing, I don't think that the language of gain and loss is available to me. It's not recognizable to me in a descriptor of what's gone on and what continues to go on. So what could it be instead? Let me go to gratitude and then maybe double back. This is not a rap I have for you. I don't know what I'm going to say right now. Okay, we'll find out.
It's my favorite version of your answers.
Okay. So you would think, I've certainly thought, and I've certainly worked with acres of people who thought that gratitude is a direct consequence of benefit, that it's a kind of almost genetic predisposition, or it's a genuflection that you can't help, that if the download is good, then you're just going to want to high five the universe, basically, right? And of course, the rest of the story is anything that doesn't fit into the category of upside is not gratitude liable or worthy or likely, which means you're going to spend an awful lot of your life gratitude free, if I could be very neutral about it, John, because I don't think most things in life really add up to wildly stimulating and successful and encouraging and the rest. So with that in mind, then I'm suggesting that maybe gratitude is an achievement rather than a reflex. And maybe it's something much closer to a recognition than it is to a benefit. And then maybe it's like grief. Well, there's no maybe. I can't separate gratitude and grief. I've always had a hard time, but I've given up entirely on the project now.
Mm.
And it seems to me that they are kind of asymmetrical twins.
Yeah.
You know, that they bring each other to the party over and over and over again. And they're very clear that they are devastatingly incomplete, missing the other one.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
The amount of times I quote you talking about the flower and not getting the beauty of the flower if you don't also accept the dying of the flower.
Yeah. I don't know, except Ed, honestly, excuse me, Ned, I don't think the acceptance is really the thing.
Yeah.
I think it's
Okay.
the simple dislocation that's available to you when you lose track of your convictions, because something like the end of a flower teaches you about beauty. Yeah. I've never thought acceptance is required, necessary, or even a really good idea.
Mm-hmm.
I used to say to dying people, and I'm sure you've said it, your version of this many times as well, that you have no obligation to accept that you're dying, because acceptance usually is looked upon as a kind of warfare that you prosecute against a sense of well-being. And I think a sense of well-being is available to you in dying, and in fact is something much closer to a moral obligation you have to locate it somehow in your life. I don't think acceptance gets you there. I think hurt and a willingness to be versed in hurt gets you there.
I'm gonna keep going with peppering some questions from our community in ways that I feel like you're even inviting a bit. The question here feels like it could be a departure from where you're at right now and this book as a focal point, and I don't want to do that. So I'm with permission, maybe I didn't get permission, but with apologies, I'm kind of reframing some of these questions a little bit. And I'll read the question first though, because it is the starting point. And this message here, if you were asked by someone who sought you out as a grief worker, if you would sit with them during their medical aid and dying death, would you, and why or why not? Now, I bring this connected to Die Wise and some of the teachings I got from you in your past work around death with dignity and some of your positions or thoughts on that particular ending. And I do mean to connect it to what's happening for you, and that what you're faced with is maybe in some ways different from a dying that is sudden or asleep in your bed in 40 years. And to know you're facing a version of deterioration that maybe even part of this question is this something you'd consider in your own future in this time faced with this diagnosis and before you would never have. So that's a lot, but I just wanted to connect their question to what you're living through and what's ahead and just see what you want to pick out.
Okay. So first of all, as I understand it, and I'm no expert because I didn't spend any time on the internet basically at all, this thing that I have is not terminal in the usual understanding of the term. So I'm going to have to die of something else in some other way alongside being addled by this operation. Yeah. So I'm not operating as a dying man. Okay, so these questions are legit, a little premature.
Yeah.
But I can speak in the to the very first question about would I attend someone else's if asked.
Yeah.
Right. So the answer is no. Why not? The answer is the same answer I would have given if I was in the Die Wise days or the palliative care days. My job, as I understood it then and now, was to make myself obsolete. not fundamental, not central, not informative, influential, just temporarily consequential. And then, I mean, success is not the right word, but a sense of a job well done would include someone literally outgrowing any notion they might have courted at one time, that my presence on the scene could be just the thing. I don't think it would be, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's like, I used to get asked all the time, have you met Leonard Cohen? And I would say, no, thank God. And they would say, what? Because they knew how influential he was to me.
Yeah.
And I would say, do you have any idea how disappointing the encounter would be, at least for him?
Based on what, yeah. Yeah.
So the same.
Mm-hmm.
The same. And the occasion I've seen it happen, man. The occasion that the questioner is asking about brings to the fore such a twisted. Am I shouting? It feels like
it feels passionate and clear,
okay.
and I'm the right volume for what needs saying.
Good. This kind of circumstance brings a level of kind of performative attempting to occupy the very parapet of not only sanity but wisdom and all the rest, And look, man, human life isn't staged out that way, I don't think. You might recognize in retrospect, with the benefit of a little hindsight, that wow, that was a big one. But at the time, you're just hanging on, no matter how you got there. And certainly I found, working with all the dying people I did, my version of just hanging on turned out to be, if this is not a bad thing to admit, turned out to be useful to a lot of people, including the people who were attending. So not just, or even necessarily principally the dying person. And I mean, I hope there's a through line in this book, Trembling Still, in that regard. But let's not succumb to the idea that because there's a moment in which someone dies, then it's a kind of drastic theater. It's proper to let the thing settle into the corners and just learn its vernacular. That's all. And so do I see myself as dying on the installment plan now? Not really, no. But taking away the mortality element of things, do I think this is a matter of learning things that way, incrementally, as to figure out how to cease? Yes, I think that's the gig.
Yeah.
And yet, yes, I've always figured that everybody's dying before your own, and my own is our chance just to get it straight, just to see the thing, just to be tutored and tempered and trembled and torn by it.
Yes. I want to connect another question here that I have from the Q&A messaging to your reaction to my setup for the last question from the Q&A section. And it is your declaration that you're not dying, even though, by the way, and I told you this before, after finishing this book, I was like, he's dead already. I mean, there's a way the book moves and speaks truth that has a feeling like I don't know what it's going to be like to ever talk to Stephen again, if I even get a chance to. And proven time and time again, there's a way you've proven you're very alive. And I know dealing with things that are very significant on a day-to-day basis, or maybe not, but this is part of what it means to be alive for you now. You just named that. And so I want to make a little more room for you to explain what you got at just there, which is saying I'm not dying and have no plan on doing so in the near future. And so then what is this thing? You maybe just named this, like it is an incremental towards an end. But then let me read this, and it might be something you can loop into responding to that or
Okay.
sharing more about that. This question is: both of my parents died of dementia. I watched them lose their self and become simply their own troubled bodies. As their mind and personality vacated, there was no self to accept or face their own dying. Has your experience of having your mind and sense of self threatened by a diagnosis like this enhanced your compassion for people who can't seem to confront, accept, or contend with their own death?
Well, I hope so, but I don't think that means I was compassionless prior to this either.
Sure.
I mean, just to,
It
full
might imply
disclosure.
that. They didn't say that, but yes, okay,
Okay.
just to be clear.
Yeah, just to be clear, yeah. Um, maybe it's subtler than compassion. Compassion is kind of over the top Dalai Lama stuff to me. And I think what I talk about instead is, does it ask of your humanity that it comes out of hiding? My answer would be yes, it does. Do I have to be actively dying for any of this to be true? No, I never saw the period of active dying as a kind of inevitable midwife of profundity of any kind. It was not a given. Okay, so there was still a lot of work to do. It's like love. There's one true thing and then another, and then a lot of things to do. Well, dying is like that. I that's certainly what I saw. And do I think this is practice for dying? I don't think so. I think dying is really acutely and sometimes savagely a standalone proposition. I don't think it suffers idle comparisons, parallels, similes, and the rest. I really don't think it does. I think if you let the language that you use to talk about dying be radiated by the realities of dying, as both of us have done in our lives, working lives and otherwise, you find that a lot of idle chatter is banished. And you realize you're working like any yogi would with his breath or her breath. You're working with your words to see if you can be faithful and like a faithful witness, as I've said so many times.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe trembling still is an act of faithful witness.
Yeah.
It doesn't require the last breath to be imminent to get there.
Yeah. I mean, you'd admit there's an urgency to the writing, though, that has, and this, I'm realizing this now, Stephen, too. Like, this is true what I'm saying, at least in my experience of reading the book. And I feel like unfairly, because of decades of your work, you're maybe being asked to force death in overlap or woven into this diagnosis. And suddenly I'm thinking of all my cancer patients I've worked with over the last 10 years, realizing that like those conversations and the processing and the catharsis and the community connections and the support space, the holding, it isn't about dying as much as it is about what cancer is and what it's doing to their daily lives. Mortality is present there, but only as a this will head there, but so will all of life. And so I guess I'm wanting to name the unfairness maybe in like death, maybe somehow being like, oh, the die wise guy's dying. Let's make it about that,
Yeah. Well, it's understandable. I'd probably want to see that movie too. But
yeah, you said that. Yes, right.
yeah, but
Right.
there isn't going to be one though.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But I could say this, that I think this survives onto the book jacket or somewhere it's there, where I said, this was the first day of the end of my life as I knew it. That's what it was. The first day of the end of my life as I knew it. That's fairly mortal.
Yes.
And
there is a dying there is a dying, that you've been, or
what would it be
dying.
though?
Yeah.
What would you say? What's dying then?
I wonder about many things. I wonder about a dying connected you walking away from that event with Natalie and naming a ruin, a ruination, you know, and to know that that's just one version of maybe many. I wonder about the dance, you know, the invitation to dance and feeling the loss and the capacity to do that. And I'll connect another question here to that means a lot to include. And I read this with emotion, imagining someone in our community who knows you and your work and is relating to you after all that, and now with a similar diagnosis. And this is their question: as I journey into my second decade of the inevitable arc of Parkinson's, how can I stay open to some new me that might blossom instead of endlessly mourning the me that is already gone?
Right. Yeah, man. Yes. That's the first thing. Just friggin' yes about the heartache and the friggin' wreckage and the how hard it is to be a human being and so forth. Yep. It's all true. One. Two, I was lucky enough early on in the thing that's become a prolonged war in and around Israel. It was in the days immediately after that whole situation, October 7th, I think it is, or 11th. Anyway, they asked me to get on this call, and I said, "Why? I mean, why would you need somebody from the outside?" And they said, "Well, you have a bit of a following here, and we would like, we'll just put the word out, and maybe there'll be 50 or." So anyway, we did the call, and there was like thousands. It was just very unexpected. And the first question was almost the same. The first question was, we know what's coming in terms of retribution and payback and all the rest. So the question is, how can we keep our heart open given the inevitability of foreclosure and occlusion and everything else that's incoming, and subsequent time has proven them to be right? And I didn't know the answer, Ned. I didn't know the answer. That has never really gotten in the way of me trying. But this is what I said, for better and for worse. And this is what I'm saying to the person who's written there. Trying to keep your heart open and failing to do so is the human heart open. That's what it is. See, I think we imagine success when we imagine open-heartedness. We just imagine a kind of like a flow through event, and some mysteriously, a sense that all shall mysteriously or miraculously be well. I think the human heart open has a lot of debris and breakage and the rest. And you don't know that your heart is open when it is, because of your expectations of what that should feel like. Leonard, God bless him again, but he said it best. He says, behold the gates of mercy in arbitrary space, and none of us deserving the cruelty or the grace. And I think so much suffering, including the one available to me, so much suffering is consequential to this fact. We're fairly sure that merit somehow delivers us, somehow is persuasive enough that if we exercise merit, then the merit will be available to us in tough times. See, I don't think so. I don't think it works that way. I think your merit might be available to other people, but you're going to go through your hard times as I'm going through mine. With your merit parked on a side street for other people to appreciate, to love you for, to congratulate you, and to take on themselves, while you try to do your best to seek out another someone else who's not what you know, what you think about, how you've seen things in the past.
This feels like
God
one of
bless
the
the question, I have to say.
Yeah,
I feel the question so desperately.
Sure.
God bless the question. Absolutely. And the questioner.
Those are one of the moments when I feel like we've arrived at like near the ending. speaking of endings, and so just wanting to name that, and let it, and yes, honoring the question for helping us get to that. And I feel like you said there's so many ways we could go on and talk about so much, and I barely touched all my notes and quotes, but it does feel like I'm missing not to make time for talking about the story of the dance and maybe the snowdrift too. And again, I'm bringing Natalie in because I love this quote in connection to that moment, especially in your book about the snowdrift when you guys get stuck in a truck in the snow. You said you said you get to be, and again, I'm just saying, you say I'm not dying right now, but these is your words. You said you get to be a presence, a consequential one in dying. And you use those words when you tell that story about you two stuck in the truck. And I'm wondering if we can spend a little time there. It might be storytelling that. It might be that you're like, I'm going to skip the snowdrift. Get the book, everybody. The link's in the chat, okay? Get the book at pointreyesbooks.com. Plenty of stories to read that have such great power and poetry and are so moving and touching. And I wrote down too many here for us to have you tell us all of them. But I'm wondering from those words if there is a story to maybe share and then a way to kind of highlight those words or expand those words a bit. And then to, maybe like you're inclined to do, I can tell, maybe read.
Sure, that's what I'm going to do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to locate it where
I got page numbers.
Okay, please.
If you want the snowdrift story.
No, the dancing story. It's
Oh, geez,
February
I might
8th.
not have that one.
I think I've got it.
Okay,
I
all
think it's
right.
February 8th. Here we go. Listen, we can give everybody more than they bargained for and do both, okay?
Cool.
Okay, here we go. I am sad for my body. I haven't said much about all this to anyone beyond Kimberly here and my wife at home. It's a hard thing and unkind too, to lever this down upon them and then retire to fatigue or silence for a while and leave them trying to sort out the etiquette of responding. There's so much to say and so little of it is called for. So we all flail at the thing. There have been a handsome amount of fifth column reveries and testimonials come in, many of which I can't bear to read. The psychedelics advocates are well represented, but I'm not keen. Transplants and implants at great expense, crowdfunding recommended. Man, I couldn't ask people to send me money with a straight face. But here's something I've noticed. It has to do with movement. It began maybe 3 weeks ago. My wife and I were in the stone house in Joshua Tree, and it was dusk, and the moon was coming up. We'd figured out the speaker's mechanical mystery. I didn't, she did. And we were playing a Doors record called LA Woman at my request. We'd each had a glass or two of mezcal, and the monumental sadness was off in the corner just then. My wife stood up, extended her hand. She wanted to dance. I'm a lousy dancer, but I knew this wasn't a time to be typically awkward. It's just us, she said. So I took her hand, I rose to the occasion, and I listened to the groove. Nothing happened. My right leg more or less obeyed, but the left was parody dancing, like it had no serviceable tendons. It would go forward, it would go back, but it couldn't syncopate at all. I couldn't tell at first, but after a few tries, it was like calling a number that just kept ringing. My wife was still dancing, still looking at me, her eyes saying, "Come on, I want to dance with you." And I realized then that I couldn't. Not, I can't dance a samba or a waltz. No, it's, I can't dance. I can't move. that way. I made myself say it. We were both suddenly embarrassed, or something close. It's okay, she said, and she stepped back to let me sit down. But I didn't want to sit down. I was in shock, or something close. I couldn't move my leg. When did this happen? It wasn't weak. It was unresponsive, barely there. And ever since then, any move that I make to do some yoga or Tai Chi or anything similar, I get weepy almost at once for all the things that this body will probably never do again. It's not defiance. It's not resistance. It's grief in waves. I'm so mournful over it. This body. P.S. We begin in light and we end in wisdom if the gods prevail. We begin in water and we end in dust, they say. And life is us drying out, mostly. So that happened.
Yeah. Recap.
Do you want to do
yeah,
the
I mean,
the truck and
I
the
want
snow?
to, yeah, I mean, I almost want to, I wonder about it. I wonder if that's what's next, or if it's did you all listen to those words? Have you not read the book yet or got the book yet? Like, that's your invitation if you want more. And I would say the snowdrift section could bring us back to those words I quoted. You get to be a presence, a consequential one in dying, that you might want to speak to. But I want to stop for a second and just honor what you read and thank you for it. And I cried when I read that, and I'm crying now.
Yeah.
And
It gets me every time.
yeah. And also, there's a whole other part of your book where you describe dancing, where you later in the book you say, tell a story of you just getting up in the community circle and just being like, this is what it is to dance for me now. And it matters to just share that, that this journey for you is something like a story like that devastates, and then another moment that elevates, and brightens and inspires. And the book moves like that, it seems to me.
I'm glad it does. I don't, honestly, this is not going to come as a shock to anybody who's been around me at all, but I don't think there's anything wrong with hurt. And maybe that's part of why I'm sitting here talking about this. Maybe it's why I, quote, have the thing. I honestly don't know the cause and all of that sort of gear. I'm not too wrapped up in the question of, what did I do or what did I fail to do or any of that sort of stuff. But I probably didn't credit the performance or the practice of unbridled joy like I might have done. I will absolutely give that up, put that on the altar. I think that's a fact. Am I recommending joy to anybody who's listening? Friggin', of course I am. Obviously, I am. But by joy, I don't mean delirium. I don't really mean ecstasy. I mean something that's awful, that's literally full of awe, which I think is probably our oldest religion. Awe, and when some of us don't prevail, well, that's a lot of us. But when we see one of our kin or kind no longer prevailing, we know it's going to school now for the rest of us. That's what it is. Partly to respond deeply and well to the person in present time, of course, but also to carry that around long after the fact. What you saw, what it did to you, what it took if it took, what it asked, what it insisted upon, and the rest. And we have that obligation to each other to not be okay for too much of the fray. I honestly believe that, because if we don't, then when we come to our time of struggle and travail, it's almost inescapable that we will feel that we're personally responsible for the ordeal that's come upon us, through failure or whatever it might be. So if we could just be at least as generous with our sorrows and our broken downnesses and our ramshackling as we tend to be with our advocacies and opinions, and yes, even hero stories, I think we perform a valuable public service that nobody's asking for. Help me leaven out the expectation so that the hurt doesn't seem wrong and the happiness doesn't seem gone.
I feel like we're landing the plane right now.
Yeah.
There's two questions that kind of popped into the message field that I want to pose and connect as maybe a last chance. There's been a lot of great questions, everybody, and I'm wishing we had more time, and just thanks to all of you for sending these over. We're obviously not going to be able to make time for all of them, but there's a lot of good ones, and thanks to Jordan Bowen for helping feed them over to me. I'm wishing for sort of a Nick Cave newsletter, Stephen. I know you send out newsletters, but I'm like, can we just send these questions to you and have you start rattling off responses in emails to come?
Let's be serious and say,
yeah,
that sounds good.
I'm being serious. Yeah, so maybe Jordan, you can copy and paste some of those other questions we didn't get to, and maybe that's something that could follow this. I would read all those, Stephen. You'd have at least one subscriber.
Okay.
I'm sure more. But these two questions are kind of connected, and I want to add apology, not for them, but for what I'm kind of noticing is an inclination. It's like, okay, Stephen, you said it. It's like, well, here's all your work now, prove it. And I'm not saying these people who ask these questions have that in mind, but I just can see the connect there. And this is one in Come of Age. She thinks you write about the obligation to be wrecked on schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And she acknowledges that might be a little bit of a rough paraphrase. And
no, that's it.
okay. And she says, does this seem to be a wise signal from you then to you now? And I think coupled with that, a kind of similar question, which is for your other book, and everybody get all the books, Come of Age included. But this person asked, what has this experience taught you about the advancement, quote unquote, of elderhood? How has this new level of elderhood racketed what you thought it meant to be an elder before your diagnosis? So I feel like those kind of connect. And there's this constant, like, what is it like to have these questions and fielding questions like this as like, oh, you're there now. This diagnosis and book is you being there. So say some things about it that connect back to what you taught us before, just acknowledging that, and I might just be projecting that, but.
Sure. Well, I think what's in the question, and this is not directed at the people who are asking them. Okay. This is about the phenomenon of being asked these things.
Yes.
Okay. There is in this kind of question, I think intentionally, probably not, but I think it's there, the idea that the most successful visitation of travail is the one that you can convert fairly readily into either a cautionary tale or a subtle victory story or things of that kind. That the translation has to be imminent and fairly quick and fairly accessible. And I think there'd be a degree of disappointment in some quarters if people who had a kind of notoriety in people's lives from afar through a public life or something, just sort of quietly vaporized or went off. You see, the idea being that somehow there wasn't enough left behind, or the thing wasn't clarified enough, or the translation was faulty, or at least partial, things like that. And so a couple of things about that. One, I mean, folks, you know, we all understand that we have, personally speaking, we have a job to do, right? In occupying to the best of our abilities our humanness and making that occupation available to others over generations. We also understand that we disappoint each other with maddening frequency, right? And sometimes it's intentional, I think, and spiteful, alas. And then hopefully more often than not, it's accidental or incidental to some other struggle or strife or travail or something.
Mm-hmm.
I never intended to take this thing and turn it into goodness. Okay. And I haven't done that. And am I finished? Have I said everything? I don't know. I don't know. You know, I'm not troubled by the idea that
I don't think you're done saying things, but
yeah.
go on.
I'm not troubled by the idea that I'm going to be around for a bit yet. See?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And I am troubled about the prospect of being around and being slack-jawed and drooling, to be frank. There's no doubt of that. And there's no happiness in contemplating that possibility. But folks, it's important to know that neurodegeneration isn't always senility. It doesn't always cash out that way. Or, sorry, I'm blanking on the term it was used earlier. Kind of psychic and mental obfuscation. What was the word that they used?
I'm not sure. From the last two quotes I said?
No, a little earlier than that.
Oh, from the
So let's let it
person
go.
who, yep, fine.
We can let it go.
Yep.
You know, I was told that it's not inevitable that I'll, quote, lose my mind, even though it's my mind that's dying. So am I holding on to that? You bet your life I'm holding on to it. But at the same time, I'm trying to find a way to have the grains of sand pass through as we know intuitively they must.
Yeah.
Right? I ain't done. I just have that sense, you know, and I do feel an obligation to the people who write in. Of course I do. It's not lost on me that some things I've said or done counted for people in crunch time. And do I think that extends my obligation to them infinitely? Nope. Do I think it extends it though? Yes, yeah. I do. Mm-hmm. And I'll probably have to be the one that says probably that's it.
Yeah.
But I don't know that we're there. And listen, please keep asking me tortured, inflexible questions.
Okay? You know I will.
Yes. And I'm saying it to the people who are listening.
I know you are.
And thanking them for doing so, because please don't think I'm being uncooperative. But Ned knows me very well, and he knows that it is I've been charged somehow as a relatively young person, and up to the present moment, I've been charged with the responsibility of trying to not be an agent of customer satisfaction. So that's just how that is.
Yeah.
I just have other work, and God bless the people who can be agents of customer satisfaction.
Yes, that job needs to be filled as well. Yeah. Well, I just thank you so much, Stephen, for bringing us to the edge.
Just give me 1 second.
Yeah,
I'm supposed to. Oh, this. Okay, I'll just hold it up. Okay, there's a lot to say, but a lot of people.
Great. Thank you. Okay, I'll take that. Point Race Book, thank you. Khadija and the Orphan Wisdom team, thank you. Your kids, thank you. Sister and the good people on the call, Kimberly Johnson and the people at the farm. Lots of thank yous.
That's Natalie's work again.
Yes, Natalie. Thank you, Natalie. I'm I'm going to hand it over to Jordan really quick, though. A reminder for all of you in the chat that the book's available through Point Reyes Books. Support your bookstores. Get out there, buy the book from Point Reyes Books. The link is in there, and the digital version's in there too. There was a question, Stephen, about an audio book, if there would be one.
It's in the can.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Not the
I
trash
don't know that
can,
it's,
but like
I
the.
don't know that it's, is it? Oh, Natalie says she downloaded it today, so it's
Oh,
there.
it's available.
But
Okay.
you should hear me on that thing.
That's awesome. All right, cool. Thank you. Thank you so much, Stephen. Thank you, Jordan. I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Ned.
Thank you, Ned. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you both for such a authentic and beautiful navigation of this space and this conversation. I think all of us watching, we could just take a collective exhalation together after that. Thank you
Did
so
we do okay?
much. You did beautifully. And we will be posting this conversation to our YouTube page. There's a link in the chat, Point Reyes Books YouTube page, as well as other links to upcoming in-person events with Stephen in Ontario, Canada, and Wales. I hope some of you can make it to those. Thank you again, and have a good night, everybody.
Thank you, folks. Thank you, everyone. Thank
Bye,
you, Ned.
everybody.
Thank you
Thanks,
all.
Stephen. Talk to you soon. Bye, Jordan.
Let this not be the last time.
That's right.
Good night.